Okay, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Conference on Afghanistan and the Region, Security, Stability, and Prosperity. It's a real pleasure to have all of you here. My name is Sanjay Puri. I'm the chairman of the U.S.-India Political Action Committee. We are a political organization that really represents the Indian American community, 3 million Indian Americans in this country. And it's an honor to host this conference with two great partners, FIDS and the American Foreign Policy Council. Now we're going to have our guest and our obviously keynote speaker, the president of the Bharatiya Janata Party in India, Mr. Rajnath Singh. We are truly thrilled to have him visiting us. And again, he has a long bio, but he's been the president of the Bharatiya Janata Party twice. He's also served as a federal or a central minister. He's been a transportation minister. He's been an agriculture minister. He's done many things in the space of transportation in terms of agriculture. Youth are his passion. Women's upliftment are his passion. He travels around the country, all over India, and obviously he's looking forward to building and continuing a strong U.S.-India relationship. We had a lunch yesterday, and I really thought that his thoughts were really forward-looking and forward-thinking. And we welcome you, sir, to this conference and to hear your remarks, Mr. Rajnath Singh. Thank you.
Honorable Chairman and the distinguished friend of India, Mr. Edward Joyce, my fellow panelist, Mr. Ashraf Hydari, Deputy Chief of Mission, India, brothers and sisters. We in BJP are the believers of the ancient Indian dictum, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The entire world is one family. I address all of you, our American hosts, participants from various important think tanks and institutions, embassy and government representatives, as well as members of Afghan, Pakistan, and Indian communities in that spirit. My warm greetings to all of you. I convey special greetings to my friends in and from Afghanistan. India and Afghanistan share a millennia-old strong civilizational bond. The linkages go back to the Harappan civilization. The spread of Buddhism, followed by the spread of Islam under the Turks and later the Mughals. We in the BJP attach key importance to these age-old bonds as the foundation for a lasting friendship with our northwestern neighbor. I would like to recall that I was the Chief Minister of India's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh, when one of the Afghanistan's most prestigious and adorable historic sites at Bamiyan, which was also the world's biggest statue of Bhagwan Buddha, was vandalized by the fundamentalist regime of Taliban in 2001. At that time, as a symbol of the common commitment of India and Afghanistan to global peace and harmony, I pledged to build a replica of Bamiyan Buddha at Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh, a town where Bhagwan Buddha had attained heavenly abode. I am sure this conference would be a forum to reiterate that commitment by all the distinguished people here. Chairman, sir, Afghanistan has passed through very difficult times in the last 3 decades. Conflict with the Soviet Union, followed by the repressive Taliban regime, brought innumerable sufferings of the people of Afghanistan. They now deserve peace and stability. We applaud their determined efforts to establish a democratic and progressive Afghanistan. As the world's largest democracy, India would always be there to help Afghan people in their endeavor to democratize. Not only to democratize, but to modernize and stabilize their country. US, the world's oldest democratic nation, will, I am sure, stand with Afghanistan in the long run in its democratic nation-building enterprise. In fact, it was the intervention of the International Security Assistance Force, mostly consisting of the NATO countries, troops actively assisted by the Northern Alliance forces in the end of 2001, that had paved the way for the decline and eventual overthrow of the Taliban regime. India supported this US-led intervention in Afghanistan to overthrow the obscurantist Taliban regime that sheltered Al-Qaeda on Afghan soil. The regime also allowed terror groups targeting India to be trained on the territory. We committed the success of US forces or NATO forces in neutralizing the Al-Qaeda and eliminating its leader found hiding in a military garrison town in Pakistan. We don't make a distinction between the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban on the premise that one primarily targets the West and the other does not. For us, the menace of religious extremism and terrorism is seamless, as the roots of the ideology of intolerance are the same and can be directed against any perceived enemy as the situation demands. Despite the success in decimating the Al-Qaeda, the menace of terrorism emanating from the region persists. The attack on the Twin Towers in New York showed the great geographic reach of terrorists. The recent terrorist attack in Boston, despite all the international and homeland security steps that the US has taken, demonstrates the continuing vulnerability of democracies to this menace. India has been a target on the radar of terrorists in the last 3 decades. The Indian Parliament was attacked in 2001. The commercial capital and pride of India, the city of Mumbai, has been repeatedly attacked. The latest attack was in 2008, in which 266 people, including 6 US nationals and several other foreigners, were brutally killed. Indian government has enough evidence to prove that the perpetrators of these crimes against humanity found shelter and safe haven in our neighboring country, Pakistan. Incidentally, Osama bin Laden, the Al-Qaeda chief, too was found hiding in Abbottabad in Pakistan. The extremists thrive less on popular support and more on the clandestine support they get from certain political, military, and intelligence outfits in pursuit of their stated or unstated strategic and ideological objectives. This is at the root of the growth and survival of the terrorist groups in the region. I am pained to state that we, the Indians and the Afghans, have been exposed to threats from the terrorists who have their safe havens in our shared neighborhood. The US has made Pakistan a partner in its war on terror in Afghanistan in the last 10 years. The results have been a mixed bag. While the Taliban and Al-Qaeda have lost many key leaders and the thousands of the fighters, they continue to hold on to their strongholds in south and east of Afghanistan and also inside Pakistan territory. This happened primarily because along the way, sometime in 2003, 2004, the US had lost focus due to its campaigns elsewhere, and the terror outfits had gained the breathing space to regroup and recirculate. The result was further fleecing of American dollars by Pakistan further dependence of America on the country, and for the rise in the activities of the terror networks, Pakistan needs to do a lot to tackle this menace. Unless the fundamental problem of safe havens of these groups and their leadership in Pakistan is addressed, the Taliban menace cannot be eradicated. The BJP expresses cautious optimism, keeping in view the track record of successive regimes in Pakistan. The US has to make its own decisions regarding the final scope and timetable of withdrawal from Afghanistan. But its decision has implications for the region in terms of the combat against extremism. As a major power in the region, India needs to be properly informed about any US initiatives in the region besides other countries. It is important to ensure that the country doesn't relapse into the pre-2001 anarchic mode once the NATO troops withdraw. It must be ensured that we do not leave behind a black hole of global security while leaving that country. India has supported reconciliation in Afghanistan that is Afghan-led and Afghan-owned. The sincere efforts in the first couple of years after 9/11 had led to the Loya-Jirga meeting in 2003 and 2004, and emergence of a democratic Islamic Republic of Afghanistan with a new constitution. The government of Hamid Karzai was a product of that exercise. India extended full support to the initiatives and has been actively involved in supporting the democratic regime through development aid. India's development aid stands at $2 billion today. Almost the entire amount is spent on development-related activity like the construction of the new parliament building, roads, electricity to Kabul, hospitals, schools, etc. Brothers and sisters, we are committed to continuing this development aid to Pakistan, to Afghanistan, as long as they need it. We are also committed to making Afghan government the nodal agency for implementation of these projects. India doesn't want to interfere or control the affairs of the country either directly or through proxies. We are in favor of a democratic, sovereign, and a progressive Afghanistan capable of managing its own affairs without any foreign intervention. For the landlocked Afghanistan to have greater decisional autonomy and boost its economy. Improved connectivity with the outside world can be major game changer. Any efforts to replace the present democratic arrangement with a totalitarian and a sectarian Taliban regime would be detrimental not only to the people of Afghanistan or its immediate neighborhood, but also to countries like India, Russia, China, and even the US. It is the experience of the whole world that terrorism knows no boundaries. It is in this context that the situation in Afghanistan must be weighed. The ideology of totalitarianism, religious bigotry, violence and terror, oppression of women and minorities, aggressive anti-democracy and anti-modernity that sections of Taliban propagate raises its head in various different forms, including the ones like Lashkar-e-Toiba. Regional and global peace can be ensured only if we complete the process that had begun in 2001 and rein in and democratize the remnants of Taliban and Al-Qaeda completely. We in India have shown to the world that democracy is the best healer and answer to terrorism and totalitarianism. The eagerness to engage with elements that want to return Afghanistan to the status of Islamic Emirates in the hope that they would deliver, and in the process humiliating and weakening the democratic leadership, doesn't behove well for the region. If this accommodation with the Taliban is pursued with the cooperation of the Pakistani military, as seems to be the case, the situation will become even more fraught, as many would say that it is the strategic ambition of the Pakistan army to control Afghanistan that is at the root of the conflict there. Pakistan must act responsibly to ensure a smooth transition in Afghanistan. We expect the new Pakistan leadership to show courage and determination to rein in radical elements within the ISI and the Pakistan army from interfering in the internal affairs of Afghanistan after the NATO forces withdraw. Pakistan must realize that the radical Taliban have caused enormous damage to not only the NATO forces and the democratic leadership in Afghanistan, but also the Baluchs and many others in Pakistan too. The plight of the Baluch people at the hands of these extremists and the terrorist elements calls for serious attention by the international community. It is regrettable that once again an attempt is being made to make believe that the real cause of the Afghan conflict is India-Pakistan rivalry there. This is a travesty of facts that the creation of Taliban, its takeover of Afghanistan, the Taliban-Al-Qaeda links, the presence of Osama bin Laden there, the attack on the Twin Towers traced to the Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, the subsequent US military intervention there, the presence of the Taliban leadership in Pakistan, the killing of NATO soldiers by the Haqqani group and others, and the drone attacks against terrorist targets in Pakistan, none of them have anything to do with India. Afghanistan is a mineral-rich country. To keep it backward and poverty-stricken is a crime against the people. India is willing to invest in its economic development in a big way. Our strategic partnership with Afghanistan embodies our long-term commitment to the political and economic stability of that country within the larger vision of closer ties between Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent built around trade, energy, and investment flows. The best instrument to control the rise of extremist forces in this larger region is economic development and interdependence. A democratic, sovereign, and progressive Afghanistan will usher in peace and progress in the region that includes Iran, Pakistan, India, Central Asian republics, Russia, and China. All these countries, along with the US, should have stakes in ensuring a stable and a peaceful Afghanistan. India and Afghanistan have traditionally been tied together by the Silk Route. If India doesn't share a land border of 106 kilometers with Afghanistan today, it is because of Pakistan's illegal occupation of this historical part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir since 1948. The northern region of Gilgit and Baltistan, whose people are subjected to massive oppression and human rights violations today, are a gateway for India to Central Asia, with which we have had millennia-old relations. India should get rightful access to Central Asia through the Gilgit-Baltistan region. With connectivity being established between Kargil in India and Skardu in Gilgit. India is committed to supporting the democratic forces in Afghanistan. The nascent Afghan security forces, the Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police, the combined strength of which has reached nearly 350,000, have shown encouraging combat spirit in countering the challenges on the ground, while keeping the overall political and security balances in view. India is willing to provide its share of training and non-lethal support in bolstering the defensive capabilities of the Afghan security forces. A democratic, developed, and a progressive Afghanistan has the potential to act as a major springboard for the economic progress and development of the entire region. This will bring smiles back on the faces of our countries, light in their households, dollars in their pockets, and most importantly, peace in their neighborhood. Mutually beneficial and supportive India-Afghanistan ties do not stand in the way of Afghanistan's ties with its other neighbors. We would wish Afghanistan to have close, friendly ties with all its neighbors and exercise full freedom of choice in this regard. Brothers and sisters, India has the India, and simultaneously, the US must continue to work together constructively and transparently in ensuring that the India game in Afghanistan is played out smoothly in Afghanistan's best interest and without damaging the interest of its neighbors. All should emerge as winners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. That was an excellent, excellent presentation. So you heard from the Deputy Ambassador about the passion for his country. You heard from Chairman Royce about the reasons where he thinks the funding to the Deobandi schools. And then you heard from the President of the Bharatiya Janata Party about his views about the historical ties between India and Afghanistan and continuing commitment to friendship and a peaceful Afghanistan. We will have a few Q&A, and then simultaneously we'll have box lunches brought in because we have a back-to-back panel. And then because Mr. Singh also has another lunch commitment, do you want to take a question or so, Mr. Singh? Okay, maybe if there are questions for Mr. Haidari, because Mr. Singh has a lunch appointment too. Please.
The question is for Mr. Haidari because he's one of the few Afghan people over here, and I want to congratulate him bringing up the mentioning that the Taliban with support of ISI, they are grooming the warlords over there, and mentioning that with ISI support, Bin Laden was staying next to their military training headquarters. That's all fine, you being Afghan, and from there, what the general feeling of Afghan people, they really want India to involve in their country rebuilding, and not I'm talking the Taliban, the general common majority people, what their feeling is with India, and they really want India to involve in their country rebuilding.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. I think if you have had a chance to look at the public opinion polls taken on the Indian assistance to Afghanistan, you would find out that India as as the highest opinion of the Afghan public in terms of their continued support from 2001 up to now. And of course, Afghans also, we share a civilizational bond with India, and our ties with India are not over the past 12 years, but they have been there since Asian times, and they even were there under the communist regime. And of course, when the Mujahideen took over from the after the fall of the communist regime. And so yes, the Afghan people actually want increased Indian assistance, not only in the civilian sector, but also in security arena.
Sir, my name is Umar. I'm Hubert Humphrey Fellow. My question is with Mr. Singh. Sir, until recently, the world believed that basically the Lashkar-e-Taiba, a proxy of Pakistan ISI, is responsible for Mumbai attacks and the parliament attacks. But recently an affidavit submitted by a civil servant of Indian Civil Services that it is some other story. That has created significant doubts on the earlier version of that incident. Would you please comment?
I think no affidavit was submitted by any civil servants or any civilian, as I know. But what you have told, this is a new information for me.
We have the time for 2 more questions.
Utsav Chakrabarti from World Hindu Council, and this is a question for Mr. Hedri as well as Rajnath Singh. Mr. Hedri, given the fact that Pakistan has been exporting radical Islamism into southern Afghanistan and southwestern Afghanistan, what efforts has the Afghan government been making to put in their education system a respect for the pre-Islamic civilizations, the Hindu and the Buddhist civilizations, for the younger generation? And also, for Rajnath Singh ji, in what way will India be willing to help Afghanistan in promoting the pre-Islamic Hindu and Buddhist civilizations within its population for creating diversity? Yeah, like I said, the education sector has made significant progress over the past 12 years with international aid, including Indian assistance. Like I said, we have over 10,000 Afghan students on self-financed, Afghan government financed and Indian government financed scholarships pursuing different degrees and areas that Afghanistan's reconstruction and the civilization need. As far as the curriculum is concerned in Afghanistan, it is a modern one meeting all international standards, but the challenge in Afghanistan remains one of capacity, especially capacity of teachers remains low, but that's an area that we've been working based on a 5-year strategic plan of the Ministry of Education, and that's an area where we continue to ask our international allies, particularly the United States and India, to do more in order to enhance the quality of education from primary to secondary, as well as higher education.
India and Pakistan, India and Afghanistan has not only historical bond but cultural bond also. India is ready to support whatever will be needed by the Afghan government.
Sir, my name is Malik Siraj Akbar. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Baloch Hall newspaper. My question is, what is India's policy towards Balochistan? Because Pakistan crushes the ethnic Baloch minority every day, blaming the Indians for carrying out an insurgency, whereas I'm an ethnic Baloch and we suffer every single day. What is the Indian government's policy?
Sorry, but we have to...
Could you elaborate on that so that the Baloch will stop suffering every single day?
I have already mentioned in my speech.
He has a lunch appointment, so let's proceed forward. And you can send all the questions and we can definitely direct them forward and get the answers. Thanks.
Thank you all. I want to conclude this wonderful conference by appreciating all the great speakers. Let's give them all a big hand. We had a full day of tremendous sessions, dialogue, Q&A. And the conclusion, I think, is that handling Afghanistan is very, very important for Afghans themselves, for the country, for the region, as well as for the United States. And the regional players do need to be involved. And I think that's the conclusion. We've heard from some fantastic speakers from the president of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the main opposition party in India, from the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, the ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee, the co-chair of the India Caucus, Congressman Crowley, from former Foreign Secretary of India, Mr. Sibal, the former head of intelligence of India, Mr. Dawal, and many other speakers who have given a tremendous perspective of their vast knowledge on this area. So let's continue this dialogue, and we hope that you had tremendous value. And again, thank you so much for coming.
Hello. On behalf of FEEDS, let me thank you everybody, Ram Madhav ji, Sibbal ji, as well as Doval ji, Smith, and audience everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.